who you are right now is not who you have to be forever. And there's a way to improve yourself if you just take the time and spend a little bit, spend 15 minutes by yourself in the morning and pick up one of the books that we talked about, pick up the Bible that we talked about, spend some time in personal thought and self-reflection. And I think you'll see your personal growth take it to another level.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Moeller Real Estate and Business Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Moeller, and on this podcast, we will be interviewing guests that have made their mark in real estate, in business, and in other areas of life. Listening to podcasts myself has helped me in so many different ways and continues to do so. If you're a real estate investor or an entrepreneur, or aspiring to be either, or just someone that wants to learn, you've come to the right place. An easy way to have an impact is to share this episode with friends or family, provide a review, or just spread the word. We greatly appreciate it, and now let's get to the show. For those of you who don't know Craig, Major League Baseball pitchers for the Washington Nationals from 2009 to about 2015, and then to the Padres pitched for the Padres until about 2022. A phenomenal career, a lot of success on the field. We'll talk more about on the field and off the field with Craig throughout the discussion. 3.66 career ERA. At the highest level, if you're not a baseball person, that's a phenomenal achievement. So congratulations. A leader in the clubhouse. Bob Feller Active Valor Award winner. He's very active with our military, so congratulations on that. That's a very big award. I was looking into it. He also hosts a baseball tournament, Craig Stammen Classic in Versailles, Ohio, which, by the way, my son played in it last year and will again hopefully this year. So thanks for doing that. And as of late, one of the newest coaches for the San Diego Padres. So Craig, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Phil. Glad to spend some time with you.
Well, Craig, let's start with your story a little bit. So, obviously, a pretty darn good career, a long run. Tell me just high level about it a little bit, and what were some big maybe events, mindset shifts, lessons, whatever it might be that you think could be impactful for audience throughout your career?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing about my story is where it started, and that started in small town Ohio, North Star, Ohio, playing North Star Little League. And, from there, it was a lot of big dreams and, watching Major League Baseball and wanting to be a future Cincinnati Red and be teammates with Barry Larkin and Eric Davis and those guys. So definitely had that dream my whole entire life. And there was times throughout it where it didn't feel like it was probably reasonable, but it was always in the back of my head. And as you go through high school and college, I look back, I wasn't always the best player on the team. I was a good player, really good player at times, but I played with a lot of great teammates, and so overshadowed at times in that regard. But a lot of things went my way towards the end of high school and getting noticed to play college baseball. I was originally supposed to be a preferred walk-on at the University of Dayton.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I had already graduated my senior year of high school before I was given a scholarship offer by Dayton. So that summer in between your senior year of graduating high school and that freshman year of college, I finally turned some heads of some college coaches, and that was probably my first big break as far as my career possibly taking, a turn for something, past college and professional baseball.
Awesome. And what happened? So now we're in college, and then over the course of the next, when was that, by the way? Like 2000?
2002 is when I graduated high school. So
Okay.
the summer of 2002.
So 7 years from then until you got to the big leagues in 2009, if I have that right. So what happened between, college and what really led up to the beginning of your major league career?
Actual college coach Tony Vittorio told me and my dad, he said this, he said, "I'm giving you $2,000 scholarship." He goes, "But this doesn't show how much I think of you and how I think you're going to be playing professional baseball in 3 or 4 years." So he put that seed in my head right away, before I even stepped foot on college campus, that I had an opportunity to, take it to the next level if I did the right things, worked hard, and, really got better at pitching. So college, went through that experience, and luckily I was at the University of Dayton. It gave me a lot of opportunity to pitch. If I'd have went to a bigger school, I probably would have got lost in the shuffle. But having that opportunity to go through the growing pains, and then eventually by the time I was a junior, really kind of came into my own and had a great season and fulfilled the potential that a few people had seen in me. The stats backed it up, the talent backed it up, and then was drafted by the Washington Nationals after the 2005 season.
So you started in the farm system in 2006 with the Nationals, and then was
Yeah,
there a
so
lot?
actually after the 2005 season when you get drafted, I played a half a season in the minor leagues, and then
Okay.
my first full season was 2006. And the minor leagues is it's not glamorous, but it's where you cut your teeth and try to make it and to the big leagues. And it's an odd dynamic because you're with you know 25 other guys that are your teammates, but you're all kind of competing for the one or two spots that are going to be open in the major leagues when you're ready.
Yep.
And so while there's some of your
Interesting.
best friends and your teammates, they're also your competitors too, and trying to make it to the major leagues. But I always found that if you were a great teammate and you celebrated their successes, your success tended to be just as good, if not greater, and things worked out for the better. And so, the guys that were a little selfish and there for themselves and only saw a way to the major leagues through their own merit, they tended to fall off. Guys that were more talented than me, but didn't quite have the right mindset. So
It,
the
it
mindset of being a great teammate definitely helped.
I mean, the word that comes to mind for me is the difference between a limited mindset and abundance mindset, right? So you're very much okay. If you support others, if you lead others, if you serve others, give to others, you know, instead of competing, like not everything is a competition, right? Yes, you are in a competitive sport, but instead of competing with your teammates, you're saying, how can I help them, serve them? And that was probably, quite frankly, recognized not just as your talent, which was important, your talent and your skill that you developed to get to the next level, but also the leadership you had probably started to show up a little bit in the minor leagues, I would suspect, based on just that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure did. I don't know exactly what the coaches in the front office all thought of me, but I mean, that was a big part of who I was trying to be, a good person with the right values and the right morals, and someone that everybody wanted to be around, and hopefully someone that made everybody around them a little bit better. So, having that mindset, not competing against other people, but competing with myself to make myself as great as I could be. Those things definitely helped me throughout the minor leagues and ultimately gave me a chance to pitch at the highest level in the major leagues.
Yep, I love that, man. And yeah, honestly, you can't control, or you can't control others. You can, to the extent you can serve them and support them, but you can only control yourself. And quite frankly, you can only do with you can only do for yourself with what you have. So it sounds like you had a great mindset leading into your Major League Baseball career. So tell me about that transition in the early years of Major League Baseball. What was that like?
Yeah, it's one, it's a dream come true, and all of a sudden you're 25 and it's actually happening. So quite surreal experience of making your major league debut in a major league stadium and facing big league hitters and having your family and friends all there to watch. So that's a day that I'll never forget. Once you get past that, then how do I figure out a way to stay here and not sit back to AAA or the minor leagues or have someone pass me up and take my spot on the team. So there's a old saying in baseball, it's easier to get there, it's much harder to stay there. And so I guess the rest of my career was figuring out a way to stay in the major leagues and be a valuable part of the team. And that was I kind of alluded to a little bit of being able to be a good pitcher and then also being a great teammate and being able to leader and bring people with me.
So one topic I'd love to get into more is just kind of your role on the team in the clubhouse. The stats in the career and all that speak for themselves. But if we peel the curtain back a little bit more on who were you in the clubhouse, I'd love to do that. Before I do, like, how important is the clubhouse dynamic in Major League Baseball? Like, is it impactful to winning? Is it not? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's very impactful. I mean, I think, even in my new role as being in the front office of the organization, we talk day and night about how to make our players better on the field physically. They need to be better at XYZ. They need to control the strike zone as a hitter and a pitcher. They need to pitch more in the strike zone, those types of things. But we don't really ever talk about how every individual fits within the clubhouse, how maybe it's not the most 25, 26 most talented players, but the 25 or 26 guys that gel together the best and become the best team. So it's a tough dynamic. It's a dynamic that goes all the way back to Little League baseball and can go all the way up to, World Series champions teams. There's always stories about how that team came together and how they were able to get along with each other, support each other, pat each other in the back, handle adversity together. There's not too many teams that end up winning a championship that are lone wolf teams where it's just a collective amount of, superstar talent, um, that get it done. That's a lot happens, but we've seen just as many superstar teams have disappointing seasons because they aren't able to gel together. Thinking back to LeBron when he first went to the Miami Heat, everybody had kind of anointed them champions, and it took them a few years before they found their stride and learned how to play together
Yep.
before they, went on their run of winning championships. And even our Padres teams in the past, we've had a lot of talent here over the last couple of years, but it takes time and it takes effort to gel as a team and to have the right components and the right people that care about the greater good rather than their own personal glory.
And honestly, I think this is a great I love sports and sports analogies to organizations, right? Because I think there's just so many synergies amongst them. And so, if you have a business, if you have a team, if you lead a team, whatever it might be, it's not just gonna gel out of the gate, but it gelling and you as a leader figuring out how to make the team gel is so important. Just like winning on a baseball field is the same as winning in business, real estate, whatever it might be. So I just think there's so many synergies between the two. Craig, how would you define your role in the clubhouse? So we talked about how important it is to have a good clubhouse dynamic and culture. How, like, what was your role and how did that evolve from your first days of Major League Baseball until, the when you were near retirement?
Yeah. I mean, when I first got there, it was hide in the corner and be seen but not heard type of thing. I had big guys in the clubhouse like Adam Dunn and Austin Kearns and Levon Hernandez and Jason Marquis and guys like that when I first got to the big leagues that had the leadership qualities and the big personalities and things like that. So a lot of it was like kind of just following those guys and not trying to step on their toes, but also show them that, I can be a vital part of this team and I can partner with you guys and be a hard worker and do exactly what you ask of a younger player to do to help you, reach the ultimate goal of winning a championship. So I think observing and learning and putting your nose to the grindstone early on was probably my role. Leadership was always something that I loved. I can remember back to my little league days, my dad always saying, Craig, you got to be a leader. You got to get that dugout. A quiet dugout is not a lead dugout. A loud dugout is someone they've got leadership in that dugout. And so I always remember that. And it's funny thinking about playing against St. Rose or Chickasaw or Maria Stein or Osgood or
Carthagena.
somebody like
I was
that,
a
and us trying to
Carthagena.
rile up, yeah, the Carthagena Cards,
That's right.
Montezuma, trying to rile up the dugout and start to, try to beat the other team. So that same stuff applied, when I was in my 30s and trying to be a leader in the clubhouse and somebody that, the younger guys could look to and, try to pass on what I had learned in baseball and pass it on to them. So, it's just different as you get older. You obviously, kind of get into those roles. And I had the fortunate, opportunity to be called a leader on the team.
So let's talk about that, I guess. So I don't know if that's the last 3 years, the last 5 years, the last 7 years, your whole career with the Padres, but what, like, were you anointed that leader? Did you earn that over time? What was your style? Let's talk about that a little bit more. What influenced that or who influenced that?
Yeah. I think, trying to answer that question, I think part of it is earned. Part of it comes with longevity and having done it before and experience. And a lot of it comes with wanting to do it and being the person that's able to model the model. You got the coaches and the front office, they kind of set the tone and the culture of what they want a Washington National to be or a San Diego Padre to be. And then there's got to be certain players that partner with the people in charge to, take the culture clubhouse and be the model of what a San Diego Padre is or what a Washington National is. And so I felt like I was fit for that role. I could follow directions and do what the coaches asked of me and what the front office asked of me, and I could do it as best I could, and then show the younger players that you can have success doing that. Being a relief pitcher was probably the most difficult part of trying to fall into that leadership role, just because you're not counted on as a big contributor to the team. You're counted on, but only in certain spots. Relievers really only get on Sports Center if they give up home runs. They're not the headline story. So
Yep.
you've got superstar third basemen, stops, catchers, center fielders, starting pitchers. Those have a little bit more clout, I guess, within the clubhouse. But if you're genuine, speak the truth, do things the right way, and understand your head that everybody can be a leader, not just the most talented or the people that get paid the most or have the most prominent positions. You can find your fit and you can find a way to partner with those guys and build a great leadership team.
Man, I love that. If I think about business or organizations or people within an organization, or I think there's a book, you don't need the title to be a leader, right? I mean, you just summed that up so well. So you're not the shortstop or the number one ace starting pitcher that just probably gets some extra recognition for that. Just or you don't have the title in an organization, so maybe you don't easily get that recognition. Quite frankly, maybe you need to work a little bit harder than the others to become a leader, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And if it probably takes time, consistency. I heard that on an interview with you, or comments from your teammates about just being consistent over time, right? If you're a leader for a day, that's good, but it takes time, right? So I just think I think that's a great analogy that any role in an organization can be a leader. And the other thing is, personal brand is another thing I like to talk about. Is you're always building your personal brand, no matter what role you're in. You're always building your personal brand, and people are recognizing that. Whether that's obvious to you that you're recognizing it, that they're recognizing it, you're always building your personal brand. And I suspect if you go back to your early days, just observing, learning, hungry, right? Nose to the grindstone. People saw that and you were building your personal brand from an early age.
Yeah, you're right. And it's funny that you mentioned the title of that book. When I was in high school, my senior year of football, it was a big deal to be a captain on the football team. And I remember not getting voted a captain for the Versailles Tigers my senior year. And our head coach came up to me. I was starting quarterback, came up to me and said, "You don't have to be a captain to be a leader." And so as I got older, that saying, I still remember it. I still remember the exact place on the practice field at the Versailles water treatment plant that I was at when he told me that. And it took a burden off my shoulders. Like, yes, you can lead. It doesn't matter if you have the C on your chest or not. There's the difference between who's the captain and who's the leader of the team. The
Yep.
captain is anointed by everybody. The leader is the person who acts, does, feels, and kind of handles the culture on a daily basis. And like you said, you can't just do it one day. You've got to be able to do it every day. And I think that being that consistent person, a genuine person with the values that I got raised with, was definitely a big help in my journey as a baseball player and to be a leader in the clubhouse.
Awesome. So I mean, we talked about some things, but um, what like what was your what would you say was your leadership style, especially in the later years when, okay, now you had the experience, you had shown up with the consistency, you didn't have the C on your chest, but you were recognized. What was the style? What was your approach to that?
It was to be an encourager. I wanted to make everybody feel like I was on their side. I was rooting for them harder than I was rooting for myself. And so I felt like if they had ever had trouble, if they ever had success, they knew there was one person that was going to be, right there beside them, and that was me. And so always having that listening ear and having a positive word of encouragement was definitely, a big part of my leadership style. And I think the second part of that was being genuine too, is always doing what I say that I was going to do. If I told somebody that, hey, I'm going to be here at this time and we're going to talk about this and that, and I'm going to help you walk through it, I think I had to do it. It was part of the deal. I didn't want anybody to think that something was coming out fake or I had an agenda of what, we were trying to accomplish. But, being an encouraging, genuine, and putting the team ahead of myself. Those were probably my three biggest traits as far as being a leader. And I think guys are attracted to those traits.
Honestly, first of all, I don't hear the word like you hear encouragement, but like defining yourself or trying to like your identity being an encourager. I love that, right? Positive attitude, encouragement. Just I love that. And man, I can't imagine what that did for like younger players' confidence when they see this veteran that's, been around, knows the system, knows the game, knows the people so well, and saying, I have this guy on my side. That had to be it had to elevate their performance in the team's kind of dynamic. So I love that. And then authenticity, genuine and authenticity, I think it's honestly, I think maybe it's a challenging thing, or maybe it just goes against what people think you should be. But I think authenticity is one of the most powerful leadership traits that someone can have, because people aren't worried about an agenda. They just trust you for being you. So I think that's also fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, those were. I mean, and it wasn't like I had that figured out with the first day I stepped into Major League Baseball. Those things took a lot of time, and took a lot of figuring out who I was personally as a person. Also, I knew how to handle different situations. Further I got along, and it ended up being probably the most fun part of being a part of the team was being able to be that person that people could go to, that they could feel encouraged, that they could be built up by, throughout the season, and allow them to have as much success as they could. I always felt like when a young player came onto the team, if we berated him or took him down a notch or made him feel like he was a rookie, our team wasn't going to be as good. But if
Yep.
we built him up, encouraged him, and gave him the tools to be a 5-year veteran as a rookie, I felt like our team had a better chance of winning the championship. And people could say, well, you got to be tough on those guys. You got to show them the way. You can't let them get away with things. And I felt, yeah, there was a piece to that, but there's a fine line. And I always took the being more encouraging, more positive aspect of that line. I felt like that moved the needle a little bit better than the other way.
One thing I mentioned the word abundance mindset, but just growth mindset earlier. And you just talked about, as you learned it, as you figured yourself out, what was your approach to figuring that out, to learning? Was that just watching what other people did? Was that asking questions? Was it educating yourself? Like, how do you try to accelerate that learning, maybe even?
Yeah, I mean, there's books to read and podcasts to watch and things to listen to and articles. And, I think a big thing for me was trying to pick out a few people from the past that have showed great leadership traits or values, morals that felt matched up with what you believed. And I think studying people like John Wooden, is a person that I've studied a lot of his stuff, read a lot of his books or books written about him. Just his style. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. He's a genius,
It's
absolute genius
amazing.
in how he thought about things and how he did things and how he articulated them. So a lot of his stuff was a lot of what I learned, and just, if you're a social media person, following people that are positive, encouraging leaders and taking pieces from them. I don't think there's a whole lot of stuff that I use that was generated out of my own brain. A lot of it was learned from somebody else or taken from somebody else or read from something else and then used and applied to, the current situation.
I love it. So first of all, when Craig said absolutely, it's because I pointed to the book John Wooden, which is interesting because that was like he was in the '60s, the UCLA basketball coach and a phenomenal leader. And those principles are timeless. Like that hasn't changed over the last 60 years. The same stuff applies today. So that's a great book. Um, and yeah, I highly recommend that. And honestly, again, I'll just go back to why I asked the question, but it's clear that you worked to build you worked on yourself a lot, not just physically, not just your pitching game, but also your mindset, your approach, your leadership capability. You had a growth mindset saying, okay, I'm going to get better today, not just at pitching, but holistically. And the other thing you mentioned is just the more you read and educate yourself, I think you're always building self-awareness and getting to know yourself better, which makes you a better leader of other people. So a lot of good stuff there, Craig. That's awesome.
Yeah, I felt like, you know, the only person that I could really change was myself. And if I could change myself in a positive manner, that would hopefully rub off on some people and change the culture around me. And so that was my strategy. Our pitching coach, Ruben Niebla, he jokes about having a growth mindset with the fixed mind also. He says you got to have a little stubbornness with you. The people that have a little bit of fixed mindset and tie that into the growth mindset, those are the people that are usually, end up being the best and the high achievers. And I definitely have some stubbornness with my pitching style and how I went about my business. But definitely on the mental side of the game, the emotional side of the game, there was for sure a growth mindset of trying to find that little edge that I can find to be a little bit better. Find that edge to how can I encourage a teammate a little bit better? How can I push somebody, to take their game to the next level? Those types of things.
The other thing, I mean, you mentioned some different people, but like if we talk about other people, so to take it, other leaders or other just strong influencers, not just, not, you mentioned books, but like in the clubhouse or coaches or other players, whoever it might be, like who was really influential in your career?
Guys that kind of took me under their wing early on when I got to the Nationals were Jason Marquis and Levon Hernandez, two guys that pitched in the major leagues for a very long time. Levon had defected, and that defection story in itself is one of the craziest stories ever. Where he gets to the United States and is pitching in the World Series at age 19 years old. And Jason Marquis, same kind of person. We connected because we had the same type of mindset of we're going to outwork everybody, and we're going to do it in this manner so that our careers can last a long time, and no excuses built in. We're just going to go ahead and do it and see how it happens. So those two guys, took me under their wing, showed me what it was like to be a major league player, took care of me also. They would take me out to dinner, pay for it every single time. I remember Jason Marquis taking me to this really nice steakhouse in Miami, and he said, I'll tell you what you're ordering. You're not going to get to pick what you're ordering. I'm ordering for you," and happened to be like the most expensive thing on the menu. So, just having guys like that brought me along and showed me how to be a major leaguer and basically said, "This is what the older guys taught us. Now, when you play your 7, 8, 9, 10 years, this is what you do, with the younger guys coming up," and that's how we passed along in league baseball. So having two guys by my side were big, and there was plenty of other guys throughout my career that I've come in contact with here and there that were really great leaders, that I played with. I'm thinking Mark DeRosa, Adam LaRoche, who was probably one of my biggest spiritual mentors that I played baseball with.
Awesome.
Coaches that I had, Steve McCaddy, Randy Knorr, Andy Green, Jace Tingler,
And I
great
think
people that were
like we all have people around us, right? Like everyone has examples in whatever they're doing. And I think I like what stands out there is you were paying attention. Like you were paying attention to what they were doing and just you let them have an impact. You were trying to learn and understand what they were doing. So I absolutely love it. By the way, I'm gonna just say it because it's awesome. But Craig's at home in his basement, and his daughter's like waving in the background, like should she be there? So more than welcome. We are a friendly show, so no need to hide that or change anything. Um, throughout your career, uh, now I lost my train of thought though, so I got to stay focused. Throughout your career, so who helped you? But was there any major shifts in your career, like mindset shifts, where it's like an aha moment or mindset shift that kind of changed the trajectory in some way?
Yeah. There's several, I can go back the minor leagues. I had a year, 2007, not my greatest pitching season. Kind of struggled, had a little bit of a knee injury at the end of the season. Went to spring training 2008 and had probably the worst spring training known to mankind. Couldn't get anybody out. They sent me back to A ball, and I was like the mop up reliever. And in the midst of that, you have self doubt and just things that you are weighing in your mind of like what's next and can I do this and can I not do this. And one book that I picked up randomly. I wasn't a book reader at the time. I'm still not a big book reader, but I do my best to get through as many as I can. But Tony Dungy's Quiet Strength was a game changer book for me. He had his own coaching style, being a little bit more quiet than what you expect out of a NFL football coach. And I said, well, all right, I'm not the hardest thrower in the league. but I'm really good at throwing strikes and I'm really good at throwing it where I want to. All right, I'm going to be great at that, just like Tony was great at being a quiet, composed, strong leader. And so that, I don't know, it was like an epiphany went off in my head. And, that 2008 season ended up being the best season I had in the minor leagues, and
That's
then
awesome.
propelled me to make it to the major leagues in 2009. So that was one. And I'd say the second one was I had a good major league career already, played 6 years in the major leagues, and had a major elbow injury just out of the blue. I'd been a picture of health my whole career. I remember our trainer saying in the 2014 season, he goes, Stam, I don't think I put you on the injured list or the injury report one time, not even for like a broken fingernail or a blister. He's like, you literally are like the first pitcher ever to not be on the report. And I was, puff my chest out. You're right. Like, I'm never going to get hurt. And then a week into the next season, I tore my flexor tendon and I'm unable to pitch in a major league game for almost 2 years, basically. But during that 2 year period was a lot of what we talked about with self growth. That's when the reading started and trying to pick up different things, to be a better leader, to be a better person. My spiritual life took it to another level. All kinds of things. So those two things basically set me on a trajectory. The other one for the second half of my career that turned to be very fruitful. They were setbacks, but they turned into being things that were, man, like irreplaceable if you look back on my career.
It's interesting because I'm a believer there's a bigger plan, and you don't know how the dots connect yourself moving forward, but clearly there was a plan. And I mean, you said an elbow injury, like the one of the best things that happened to you. And quite frankly, I can't imagine how it impacted the rest of your career and how it helped you become the person that had such a big impact on so many other people in the Padres organization and later on. So I got chills from that. That's amazing. The other thing that you said on your first setback, when you had this a horrible minor league season, as you said, not me, by the way, but just self-doubt and fear. And I think what's important there is that's going to happen. You got to have a big dream. You got to have a purpose. Like, you got to know what you want to get through those challenges. Because if you're not clear on what you want, when you get to setbacks or self-doubt, you're going to stop or you're going to quit. So I think being clear on what you want is so important. So just honestly, that like those two segments, rewind that and listen to that again. Not when I was talking, but what Craig was saying there, because that was fantastic stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so my dad has MS and he has trouble walking, and we always talk about, well, one day he's going to run again. And we talk about dad, if you want to walk, falling is going to be a part of it. And he's, got one of the best attitudes of anybody I know. And I've learned so much from him. And he's right. He says, yeah, Craig, you're right. He goes, if I'm going to walk, I'm going to have to fall. And, the same thing throughout my baseball career. If I wanted to be a major leaguer, I was probably going to have to struggle to get there. I was going to have some lessons that I was going to learn from that would make me a better pitcher, a better person than what I currently was when those things happen.
And honestly, the other trait that comes to mind that I'm sure you didn't say it, but it created is grit. Like when you were hurting and struggling and just building the toughness and the grit to keep going, I'm sure that came up later in your career at different times when like you needed to tap into that. And again, a lot of these, I'll say, people call them soft skills, are skills that can be developed and grown. And quite frankly, a lot of growth happens when you have setbacks. So I don't know if you claim to have grit or not, but I'm sure that created it. And quite frankly, with your career and the role you played, I'm sure you did have grit.
I asked a lot of my best friends from North Star and Versailles, was I the grittiest player, most mentally tough, or was I the best leader? And a lot of them would probably answer no. But I, I think I had the idea of eventually I want to be that type of person. All right, how am I going to get there? I'm not who I am, who I want to be right now, but in the future, can I be closer to the person that I do desire to be, or the dreams that I do desire to have? And so, like we talked about, the growth mindset and always trying to, not be satisfied with who you are, but not be worried about who you are in that moment, but also have at ways and strategies to become a gritty person, a mentally tough person, a leader, those types of things.
The other thing that you said is, your dad with MS and like learning to walk. So if you think about babies, right? And you've gone through this now, I think 4 times, right, Craig? So you get to see kids and they fail and they fail and they fail constantly. And it's amazing how our mind evolves from when we're a baby and learning to walk and just okay with failing and just get back up and keep trying it again to as we're grown adults. And our mind is formed to, I don't know, fear failure more or be more afraid of it and not just there's some shift in that. So I bet it's pretty cool to see your dad working on that, and not that it's not cool that he's going through it, of course, but to see his mindset and approach to it is probably pretty encouraging.
Yeah, someone that has grit, toughness, all those type of attributes I learned from the best. It's great to have a father that's like that, and um, you know, allowed me to see firsthand what it's like to be a leader.
Awesome. I love it, man. Well, I think I could go for a while here. I want to we talked about some of these, but I just want to wrap up with some closing questions on some different topics, Craig. So, first, we talked about a lot of different things that led to your success, but if you were to say, okay, key factor of success for people in baseball, actually in baseball or careers or whatever it might be, what would you say that is?
Man, there's so many things that come to mind, but I think it all starts with being willing to put in the work. And what we just kind of touched on too is realizing that, failure is a part of the journey, and it's actually a part of what's going to probably propel you to have even more success. So, those two, not being afraid of failure, being a hard worker. And I think the third and probably the most important thing is my faith. That having that as a background of who I am and the values that I was raised in, allows you to take the chances that could end up in failure, but knowing ultimately that it'll never be a failure based on your own baptism and your own personal savior died on the cross for you. So, your faith can, I think a big thing that changed for me or a big shift for me was when I didn't use my faith as compartmentalized, but I put my faith into everything that I was doing. So my faith poured into my family, my faith poured into my baseball career, it poured into my finances, it poured into my personal life, it poured into anything else that you can say is a part of your life instead of it just being one aspect of your life. And so when I had that mind shift, it allowed a higher power to be a part of literally everything that I was going to be doing.
And quite frankly, I think it just takes a lot of pressure off. I mean, I think it just like you're not, yes, you're in control, but you're really not in control. And there's just the way bigger picture. And I think faith is so important. We talked about this when we met a couple weeks ago a lot, Craig. Um, and I love it because I think it just gives you the confidence, the faith, the trust. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go try to do these things. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And yeah, that's just great stuff.
Yeah, one thing I'll tell you is, I've loved pitching on Sundays. And in Major League Baseball, we're lucky that we can celebrate mass, and we have a baseball chaplain every Sunday that comes to the stadiums. So I was able to celebrate mass before the stadium and then hopefully pitch on a Sunday afternoon. And I could stand on the mound saying, I have the power of the risen Christ deep inside me right now, and I'm throwing this fastball, when I'm facing some of the big stars in Major League Baseball. So, that's how I applied it in my head. And that's how it allowed me to be, take the weight off my shoulders, like you just kind of explained.
Awesome, man. I love that. That's good stuff there. What is a habit you are working on right now to improve?
Man, I got several habits I need to fix, but I think the biggest thing is I'm trying to be a better listener. And I think this is part of like, my growth and trying to be even a better leader is I think we're quick, and especially when you've been anointed a leader or told that you're a leader, that you're quick to give solutions. And sometimes you forget that somebody doesn't want the solution, especially like my wife. They just want to be heard and they want to be talked to and they want to be listened to. And so I'm trying to be a better husband, a better leader all at the same time, and a better father too. These little kiddos they can talk a mile a minute, and I'm trying to tell them to get to bed or eat their food, but I just got to listen to what they're trying to tell me, and that'll make me a better husband, a better father, a better leader.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and act like I have that stuff figured out. So you and I are both working on it together, Craig, and we will continue to have to keep working on that. I'm quite certain. So, you mentioned some books earlier, but if you were talking favorite business book, uh, leadership book, whatever was really relevant or impactful for you.
Yeah, I think anything applying to John Wooden would be probably at the top of the list. And there's a couple that I read that were written by Pat Williams, who's the owner of the Orlando Magic,
Okay.
and he's kind of studied John Wooden, and Pat was the stepfather of my first manager in the minor leagues, Bobby Williams. So I met him along the way, and when I grew up, I was an Orlando Magic fan, believe it or not, with Penny Hardaway
Penny
and
Hardaway and
Shaq.
Shaq. My
So I
son.
knew of Pat Williams because he was the guy that got the lottery ball in the NBA, lottery system. He was the guy that the Orlando Magic always sent. So I knew the name Pat Williams and then got to meet him. So I read some of his books and he's a great author. The other author that I really follow a lot is John Gordon, and
Yeah.
my favorite book that he's written is The Carpenter.
Okay.
So those are
Is that his? So he wrote The Energy Bus, but
yes,
The Carpenter is your favorite of them.
yeah. The Carpenter is my favorite.
Awesome. And just a teaser for everyone else. So that my next guest after you on the podcast is a guy by the name of Tim Kite, who I'm super excited for. He was at UCLA when John Wooden there, and it like John Wooden framed a lot of his beliefs and thought processes on leadership. So you're going to hear a lot about John Wooden from me from Craig and myself and others for a couple of episodes. Personal development book. So maybe a little bit more personal than leadership in business. What would be your favorite?
Any book of all time. That's something I try to read as hopefully daily. Sometimes with 4 kids, it gets the timing gets pushed back a little bit, but that's we're going through Lent right now. It's probably one of my biggest Lenten challenges is 40 days of being in the Word and finding time even at night after the kids have gone to bed and I'm dog tired and my mind's probably not set for reading and listening, but that's probably would you call it the personal development? That's the biggest personal development book I can think of.
So much to learn in it. So much. So I love it, man. That's good stuff. Well,
Yes.
Craig, so we talked a little bit about just reference to coaching. So what's next for you? What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about?
Yeah, luckily, the transition from playing retired last July, and about the first week of August, the Padres offered me a position called assistant to the GM. It's a job that it's not really a job. It's a paid position that I get to have a lot of fun with. But allows me to be a mentor for a lot of the kids in the minor leagues that are trying to make it to the major leagues, being a part of their player development process. And then it also keeps me involved in the major league team, trying to be not a part of the coaching staff, but being an assistant to the coaching staff. So anything those guys need, any help with digging into, specific numbers or specific players and looking for ways to make them a little bit better. That's kind of my role. So really using my playing experience to move the needle within the organization in various aspects is probably what is the best description of my role. So I've been able to go out to spring training. I've been out there a week, but the job also one of the best parts of the job is I'm allowed to be home also. So I can make my own schedule and I'm not obligated to be there every single day of the season. I can come and go as I please and, fit in the birthdays and the anniversaries and the holidays that I'd never got to do as a player and get to do those things with my family, this season and hopefully a little bit more in the future.
Awesome. And honestly, I think if you go back to you talked about it, your leadership style, I think you're set up perfectly for that role. An encourager, being genuine and just team first and having that mindset is going to help you to have such a positive impact. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. Craig, is there anywhere that you would want our listeners to, you want to point them to, follow you, contribute to anything that is on your mind that you would like to direct people towards?
There's I gave up social media for Lent, so you can't really follow me on any social media anymore. But I think if there's anything to take from what you and I have talked about is who you are right now is not who you have to be forever. And there's a way to improve yourself if you just take the time and spend a little bit, spend 15 minutes by yourself in the morning and pick up one of the books that we talked about, pick up the Bible that we talked about, spend some time in personal thought and self-reflection. And I think you'll see your personal growth take it to another level.
Man, Craig, this has been amazing. Like, I am so excited to get this out to listeners. I appreciate the time so much. Thank you for listening to the Muller Real Estate and Business Podcast. We hope you found today's episode helpful. If you know current or aspiring investors or entrepreneurs or anyone that would benefit from today's episode, we appreciate you sharing it with them, or better yet, providing us a 5-star review. To learn more about Muller Real Estate, visit our website at www.mullerre.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter or local events via our website. In closing, I encourage you to be purposeful in all areas of life, educate yourself, network with others that have been successful, take action, and lead. Thank you.